Hi everyone, thanks for tuning in. I'm Ecole Holt and I am in the studio of Ecole Holt Couture. So today I want to talk to you about the irons that we use here in the studio. Now these irons are no different than what the founder has been using in her career over the many years that she's been working in couture. Now, I said in one video before, we use a standard household iron, and I will tell you the features of the iron and why we use this and why we recommend this is the one this is all you need. Okay, first of all, we have the electrical cord, right? It's the iron and the electrical cord. And this is the plug that we plug into the wall outlet, our power source. So what we do here at the studio is we never ever plug our irons directly into the outlets in the wall, never directly into our power source. We usually buffer the power source and the iron with a surge bar. And we use a surge bar that has an on-off switch. And the reason that we do that is because we are using the iron all day long. Sometimes it's on for an hour at a time, sometimes 5 minutes at the time. And our iron on and off switches here on the dial. It's the temperature selector. And every time we want to turn it off, we have to turn the selector all the way around. And as you can imagine, now we use this iron a lot. If we continue to use the selector on, off, the switch wears out long before the iron itself will wear out. So we can control the on-off switch much more quickly, and it extends the useful life of our household iron. And the other reason is for safety, is that if we need to leave the studio quickly, or we just need to keep the temperature at its setting, and we can just turn that switch on and off very quickly and very safely. At the end of the day, we always unplug the iron from the source. We never leave it plugged in. Okay, so now let's look at the features of the iron on this side. We've got the temperature selector, and this one happens to have a dial, and it goes from off, and then it goes to 1 and through to number 6. And what that correlates to is described here on this panel, and your iron somewhere will have that feature. It will tell you what they recommend for each temperature setting. So on this iron we have 1, which is for synthetics, 2, which is nylon and silk, 3 is for polyester and rayon, number 4 is a cotton blend, number 5 is for wool, and number 6 is for cotton and linen. And it also automatically mixes steam in with the temperature. So if we want to have cotton, it automatically produces steam for cotton. Okay, so we don't use the steam function on our iron. So you'll see here on the plate, now it's got a particular shape. It has a pointy end for a reason. It's not square for a reason. It's not oval for a reason. I will get into that, but I want you to look at these. Now, not all of them are open holes, but these you can definitely see those are holes. And those are holes that will express steam that is created from water that is added into the reservoir through the hole at the top. They're usually at the top. We usually keep our reservoir dry, and we don't use the steam feature. Now the reason that we don't use the steam feature is that over time, with water, hot water going through and expresses steam, the minerals in the water will settle in and around the holes, and in this indentation you can see them as well. So it's not that we have never used the steam function, we just don't generally use it, so we empty it. So over time those minerals will collect and they will deposit themselves in there, and after a while, every time you use the steam function, it will force those particles out and onto your fabric and mark the fabric. So we prevent that from happening by not using the steam feature. Not to say that we don't use steam, we just don't use this steam feature. The other feature on here is this button here that we press up and down. That controls the water stream that comes out at the front here, which is meant for basically ironing laundry. And we never, ever use this for sewing in couture. So we don't have water in there. We can't accidentally press this and create a stream of water that will damage our fabric. The plate of the iron it's gray. So this has a Teflon coating, which is meant for helping it slip over fabric. Okay, so whether your steam iron has Teflon coating or not really doesn't matter. If you have a stainless steel plate, that is just fine. So in couture and in sewing, we do not iron anything. Ironing is for laundry. We don't iron laundry. I hate it too, but I love to press. So pressing suggests pressing, which is exactly what we do. This is what we do with the plate of the iron, is we use pressure on the iron. And we also create humidity in the ironing process. Rather than steam, we create steam by using a pressing cloth. Now this pressing cloth, I will talk more about pressing cloths in another video. But we dampen the pressing cloth, and there are various degrees of wet for our pressing cloth. So we have the iron, we have the pressing cloth, we have our fabric, and then we have the surface of our ironing board. Now this is a sleeve board that we use here at the school. So the pressing action is made up of three things. We have pressure, we have heat, and we have steam. And each one is controlled independently. Now we have the plate of the iron, and this one is covered in Teflon. It's not absolutely necessary. You can actually have a stainless steel plate, and that will work just fine. So from here down, we rarely use this area. Well, not rarely, but we don't use it very often, and we use this top section more often than not. So this point here is very useful, and we can control exactly what part of the iron that we are using, and we use it in this manner with pressure, control over exactly where the heat gets applied with our pressing cloth. This is the part that we use most often. Features now, we've got our plate, our holes for steam, our reservoir, the temperature control, the on-off switch, and the steam button, and our cord. So here we go. Iron. You can find household irons at your local hardware store, department store. Here in Canada, they generally run around $35, and they will last us for 2-3 years, so really good value for money. And when they wear out, we just replace them. Now you can use professional steam irons, and they stand on the floor. They have large reservoirs of water, and they have a hose that's connected to irons, and each iron is weighted, so you can buy them by weight. And that's great, especially if you're doing things that are repeated action, that you don't have to change the temperature settings very often, and you don't have to refill the reservoirs very often. But we don't use them because we have way more control over this household iron. We can control the steam, we can control the areas that we're using, and it's inexpensive. So again, there is the iron, and we press, we don't iron. Just press.